we're live, Dania. Hello and welcome everyone from AWS reInvent. Unqork is proud to have Aarti Gupta from AWS joining us today. My name is Farooq Sheikh. I lead the insurance business at Unqork. Welcome everyone. Aarti, would love to start with a quick intro from your side. Tell the viewers about your background, what you do at AWS, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Farooq, and thank you to the Unqork team for having me. So my name is Aarti Gupta, and I lead AWS's insurance industry go-to-market focused on North America region. And I've been with AWS for over 6 years now. What I do in my current role is I really lead the business development and go-to-market, working with both PNC and life insurance companies, reinsurance companies, large brokers, so really anything in the insurance space, along with our ISVs and system integrators, and really just helping them effectively position the benefits of AWS to insurance customers to really drive that business transformation with the line of various lines of business. So I've been working in the insurance industry for almost 25 years and really happy and excited to be here.
It's a pleasure having you, Aarti. I'm super excited about the conversation. I was saying this to somebody earlier. The AWS reInvent conference, like always, it's such a magnificent event. And this year,
Yeah.
with all the kind of activity around generative AI, it's been exceptional to be here. I guess to kick off the discussion, maybe we can start there, right? It's a hot topic. AWS
Yeah.
is doing a lot of work in Gen AI. Would love to get your perspective on how Gen AI is influencing the insurance industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually, it's funny you say that. I was thinking about the last year's reInvent and the reInvent this year, right? I think Gen AI was not, probably not even mentioned at last year's reInvent. So how so much has changed in a way, like so much advancement has been made when it comes to AI more broadly, but specifically Gen AI. And I feel like, Gen AI has really brought an inflection point in our kind of journey of overall AI and machine learning. And if you really look at the history, it has really always been about change, and a lot of that change has been driven by technology. I feel what's really different with Gen AI, and I think the hype is real, and obviously a lot of our customers are super excited about it. We are very excited about it. But there are a couple things, in my opinion, that I feel are very different, right? So first thing is, I think if you just like purely look at Gen AI, I think it's a very, very powerful tool. But the beauty is that something so powerful is now directly in the hands of users. So users can go around and play around with it and do things like creating images, videos, writing code, and all that stuff, right? So even in terms of insurance, there's a lot of different applications that, traditionally were not quite possible. But now with Gen AI, that business users can just jump in and start playing with it. And then the second thing I think with Gen AI, more broadly speaking, is historically it has just been about writing technology, writing software, and then humans had to kind of learn how to really derive value from that software and technology. Gen AI again has really just reversed that. It has just made the whole process so much easier by giving those tools in the hands of the users. And I think the potential for foundation models within Gen AI in particular is incredibly exciting. And having said that, I would say it's still very early days, because as you kind of think about the the key areas of innovation that at least we see from an AWS standpoint with our insurance customers, I would say more broadly, they're kind of falling in the four key buckets. Number one would be creative output, whether that's just writing code or designing or modeling, really being used behind the scene and improving that search and summarization and personalization. So I think that's really gaining a lot of traction in the insurance space. Second thing I would say would also be new domain exploration, where it's very much in a Q&A, very conversational type of format that historically we have not seen kind of play out with the traditional chatbots. And then the expert decision making support. I think Farouk, you probably see a lot more use cases on that front too, where it's the human in the loop almost as an assistive functionality where whether it's in underwriting or claims, you can have an assistant, so to speak, powered by Gen AI to really kind of automate the complex tasks that really save that human cognitive power for those things that require human intelligence, but reducing the consideration set of things that they may need to consider. And then, of course, we also see that in onboarding new team members into potentially complex subject areas. So I think the use cases are really, really powerful and a very diverse set of use cases that we are seeing in the insurance space. Curious about your thoughts as well.
It's been fascinating, right? Like we were looking at the keynote yesterday at AWS reInvent, and they were talking about the importance of choice, right? The
Yep.
ability for you, as these models get developed in generational AI to or generative AI, to be able to leverage the right model for the right capabilities and
Yeah.
the kind of platform and choice that AWS provides through Bedrock. That was fascinating to see. It was
Yeah.
also very interesting with the launch of AWS or Amazon Q, right?
Yeah.
Which all so we were spending some time with a number of our clients who have technology and DevOps capabilities, and folks who spend all their time looking to automate those functionality. But the utilization of Gen AI in that context really is a game changer, right? Like it's you need to spin
Yeah.
up environments and EC2 instances and so forth, and you can actually just have a conversation with some like a technology capability that helps you do that, right? So the learning curve, the adoption, the speed and automation that you would expect, like it's like fantastic to see. And in fact, like the one of the biggest observations client made today was it's moving so fast. We just don't know
Yeah.
what it is in 6 months, right? Like it's only been, to your point, less than a year where
Right.
since we all like become familiar with the technology and the word of Gen AI, but it's moved so fast and across so many kind of areas, right? Like marketing, engagement,
Right.
customer engagement, servicing, technology, like Amazon Whisper,
Yeah.
automation, productivity. There's so many fronts here, right? So
Yeah.
the confusing a little bit to say what it might be 6 months from now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, new models, I feel like are just coming out every day and new features and functionalities. So, right. So, and I always tell our customers as we're working with Gen AI use cases or proof of concept to really maintain like a mindset, a flexible mindset, and not necessarily being tied to just one model because the models just are, coming out every day more and better and faster. And that's the beauty of technology.
There, it's fascinating. The way I think about Gen AI is that this is there have been many technologies like cloud and RPAs and like
Yeah.
blockchains and everything, but this is the first time you're seeing really the cognitive automation
Oh,
capability,
absolutely.
right, at
Yeah.
scale, which is very, very exciting. I wanted to
Yeah.
check with you, right, like in that context, how do you see there's this world of cognitive automation, Gen AI capabilities, models, and services coming out, but at the same time, as you look at insurers and the industry broadly, what are some of the challenges that you see on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's funny you ask. So I think few things I would say within the last 2 years, because it's interesting, right? So in the spectrum of insurance in particular, but even more broadly, I think COVID brought in some behavior changes and just different challenges that came with COVID. But now coming out of COVID, right? So this post-COVID era, so it kind of put these pressures more kind of an economic standpoint. And we all hear about inflation, we all hear about just the higher cost of doing business. So I think both in the personal general insurance space as well as life insurance space, what we are first of all seeing is just in terms of an overall macroeconomic standpoint, is just the cost of doing business is higher. Plus, I think that organic growth for insurance companies has been challenging, right? Like the PNC insurance companies are really struggling more, I would say, from a profitability standpoint. The catastrophic exposures are at kind of at an all-time high. And like I said, the cost of doing business is, higher. So, and insurance, as you know, there's always like a lag in terms of being able to catch up to the right rate for the right risk. So I think that's going on the life insurance side. What I'm seeing talking to our customers is, I think they're just looking for that innovation in terms of making those, whether it's the term life annuities, those, typical products in the life insurance space, making them really more relevant for their end customers, being able to appeal to the younger generations, being able to make that ease of doing business direct to consumer channels, elevating the customer experience, right? Like, so all those challenges are really even more highlighted, I feel, in today's world. And I'm really hoping, as you and I are kind of just discussing about the promise of Gen AI, I think these all these areas really can, be good candidates for that experimentation and really bringing, first of all, those operational efficiencies to kind of take out the cost, but also being able to leverage data at scale and more effectively. Because again, I think insurance has been kind of really notorious for having this disparate data systems and legacy environment, and being able to really kind of break free from that and get into use cases where you can really liberate not just your internal data, but tack on your external third party data, and being able to do it with really speed, velocity, and at scale. So I think those are kind of my things. Like, I think the customers are facing, but I think there's definitely a lot of potential in addressing those risks.
This is such an exciting time. Like I always think about it when when we talk about the challenges that the industry has faced, right? But if I put together all the innovation and capabilities that AWS has
Yeah.
provided over the years, right? Like, all the way from like just the cloud capabilities and the serverless capabilities, and kind of how we at Unqork think about Codeless, and then you add
Yep.
GenAI to the mix, right? I would love to get your perspective on how are you seeing opportunity for insurers to leverage some of these capabilities together to accelerate their journey.
Yeah, I think the key areas that I'm kind of seeing a lot of interest and experimentation. Number one, that operational efficiency that I was talking about. So I think the two key business units that pop up over and over again is in underwriting functions and claims functions, right? Because again, there are, I mean, if you think about from a traditional standpoint, I would say, for example, our AWS customers are using what we call intelligent document processing. But I think what happens traditionally with those models is you still have to train a lot of your documents and the data to be able to, get the outputs that you're desiring. But the hope with now Gen AI and the experimentation that we are seeing is that these models are generalized and trained upfront, so they're much more immediately deployable and being able to kind of get the results and also with better accuracy. So I think that assistive functionality, again, I'm not saying that there are going to be decisions kind of, automated decision making happening in underwriting and claims, but definitely being able to enhance those processes and really kind of cut down on those manual tasks are some of the areas we are seeing. Same thing with on the claim side. You can have all your adjuster notes and stuff like that being able to automate and summarize, so you can extract the relevant information much more timely and really speed up the claims resolution process. And then also I'm seeing on the fraud detection standpoint from a claims, again, claims functionality, where I think Gen AI is showing a lot of promise, being able to kind of look at the data holistically and being able to flag those patterns of fraud. Again, fraud is a big area of interest within the insurance industry. And then last but not the least, overall, from a customer experience standpoint, I think that's again that real time assistive functionality for your call center representatives, being able to guide them. And when you have an angry customer on the line, or being able to kind of coach them through it in real time with Gen AI, being able to summarize and present that personalized information, the next best action. I think those all areas I think show a lot of promise.
And this is such an interesting space, right? Like as I think about today, all of our customers, insurers are very actively experimenting with Gen AI, right? And what we have seen
Yeah.
generally, and
Yep.
I'm sure, like as we work together on so many clients, we're seeing the same thing, that the insurers are actually embracing Gen AI much more actively than they've ever embraced any technology,
Yeah.
and even
Yes.
faster than most industries have, right? Like, so it's very fascinating for insurers to kind of engage with technology this quickly, but they're
Right.
also very thoughtful about it, right? Like there's always the security conversation, and I think people
Yeah.
have beyond that already. There's also a lot more of the experimentation focused on internal use cases like underwriting claims,
Yep.
marketing, DevOps, and so forth. And then there's also, to your point, they're very thoughtful about not trying to automate the decision making, but
Yep.
rather digitize the process of decision making, right?
Yes.
So keeping human in the loop, whether it's underwriting, whether it's claims adjudication, fraud, and so forth, but getting the the difficult manual pieces of the process out of the way in a more digitized process manner, right? Like, so that's very exciting.
Yeah.
I also wanted to, the more we work together, there's a lot of work that we are seeing from a legacy migration perspective, right? Like, and Bedrock is the central theme in this
Yeah.
conversation, right? So whether it's COBOL migrations, and there's very early emerging successes in this area, right? Like we're seeing this where insurers are actively looking to address the biggest problem that we have had in the industry, right, for a long
Yeah.
time. It's all about
Yeah.
legacy migrations, disparate systems, like the whole plethora of systems and infrastructure that you can think about. And I'm very excited about the potential for using LLMs, using Gen AI for
Hmm.
legacy migration, Bedrock, and the functionality it provides to accelerating the journey for the industry to streamline their business. Right, like from your perspective, like what would your advice be to insurers as they're thinking about Gen AI, as they're thinking about the amount of innovation AWS is bringing? How would you think about what an insurance CIO should be looking to do over the next few months, over the next year? What does success look like for insurers?
Yeah, no, great question. I think number one, I would say that, experimentation is the key. I think as in your organization, you're kind of finding like these use cases that again could be internal, could be low risk, more from a regulatory standpoint. So not really automating the decision making, but more from an operational standpoint. I would say start, kind of experimenting there. Um, but even I do want to kind of bring to a point about the partnership that we have, Farooq. AWS and Unqork, as we have worked together through several different customers. I think what your organization is able to bring in is that codeless aspect, and that kind of becomes the glue in this conversation too. What I really like about that is as you're experimenting and you're working with partners such as your organization, I think not only you are gaining the agility, so 3 times faster, but also that reduced cost in terms of 70, almost 70%, a reduced maintenance cost. And again, as the name suggests, no code generated, no code needed, and being able to bring your business users into the process early on. I think that's really huge because historically, the way things have worked, and I've grown up in the insurance spaces, business rules are defined, and then they're kind of thrown over to the developer side, and then they kind of build something, and then you go back to that user testing. I think with a partner like yours, I think what we are seeing jointly, and I would love to hear your thoughts too, where you can just go in with a codeless framework and being able to kind of build that jointly with the business users being part of the process faster and better at a reduced cost. So first of all, yeah, I mean, so I think as the CIOs or any persona in the organization is thinking about, and Bedrock in particular, that's really the easiest way from an AWS standpoint to access pre-trained foundation models with a single API framework that can really provide access to multiple models because it's a fully managed service with API access. And by default, it's not trained on customer data and prompts, but it really kind of achieved that domain adaptation mainly by providing custom data through the prompt. And really new features are coming out, so we have now agents for Bedrock, which really gives you the enable generative AI apps to complete the task in just a few clicks. I mean, that's really nice. And also being able to connect your own data to Bedrock. And I know some of the work AWS and Unqork is doing jointly, you leveraging Bedrock in that framework is something we can also talk about, especially around COBOL migration and whatnot. But I think those are all the tips I would give, that to start experimenting and consider Codeless as part of the process.
No, this is great, right? And this is what we're seeing across the industry, right? Like there's a method of bringing the power of three, right? Like the
Yeah,
right insurers, AWS as the biggest kind of provider of technology and innovation in this space, and the codeless capability to
yeah,
accelerate the journey. I know everyone's thinking actively about prototyping, but very
yep,
quickly we need to consider how do we go from prototyping to production in a scalable manner, similar to how everything in technology and innovation needs to have that mindset of
yeah,
how do you go from prototyping to production, and how do you leverage the power
yeah,
of AWS, Unqork, and the kind of industry together to streamline. So it's, as I said again, very exciting times. I'll
absolutely.
close with like, please reach out, AWS, Uncork, reach out to either Aarti or myself. Would love to engage in this conversation with the industry. There's a lot of work underway, and I'm very impressed by the amount of excitement within the insurance industry on adopting technology faster than I've ever seen before, and would love to be part of the journey and build this together. So thank you, Aarti, for joining us today, and really appreciate
Yeah.
your time. Always a pleasure to be at AWS reInvent, and super exciting times for the industry ahead.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great conversation. And yeah, anybody looking to jump into this and start experimenting, please reach out to Farooq, reach out to me. Would love to help you.
Take care.
Thank you.